like to get hold of that.
Okay.
Like me.
You're not gonna make mistake. No, this is played up. This is 7. Yeah, a week later. Excuse me. Ain't paid for it. I'm okay. We like.
Okay.
What's that?
All right. This. All right.
Oh, people sing them.
Tell them they ought to use this for a news spot sometime.
Yeah.
Now, you know, it's not even conceivable that all of us could be working in this office at the same time.
Hey.
One on the
He works at a TV station.
And you'll see it's overcrowded in there. We need new space.
I know.
See, you can now see the need.
Getting like the news and show how get us on the news and bring a little awareness to this.
Is there any more downstairs?
And if you get WLFI out there for something like this.
Well, interaction here, like you're having a lot of fun with all this.
I checked that one already. I finished this one, yeah.
Did you check these?
No.
Okay. Let me open it up in here. Can you work up in here a little bit?
Oh, sure.
Okay, now give me a little room here. I'm gonna put the camera right on the top. Where are you? Ah, there you go.
Thank you. Thank you so hard.
It's great. Okay.
It doesn't do enough.
We're gonna keep on doing what you're doing.
Okay. Like right here.
I need to get on this side.
Yeah, we do.
Go ahead. Okay, go ahead and full motion, pointing.
Okay.
Channing.
Just let me see this one here. And this one.
Can you use this one?
No.
Can you, or you just not know how to use it? Can we teach you?
I can't use it either. Because I'm going to say
Forward, just so like this.
just for, I don't know, I
Yeah,
guess
that's
it's
really
for
good.
safety. Restriction.
Here you go. Want to see what you look like?
The secretary said use it.
Take a look in there.
You don't have a W authorized. Do you
I look greasy.
Oh, come on.
I'm just kidding.
You want to take a look?
Wait, that's a Mac, but I can get it for
Funny, don't we?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Because that would be
You
wonderful.
know John McDowell, my friend?
Gee, we look like we're working really diligently.
He's an IBM. He's a bleacher rep for
That freeze frame.
Yeah. And we might even be able to check
shot what I look like? Sure.
Are they gonna print this somewhere? This is just for archives.
Did you get our bulletin board over here?
You're gonna. Oh, okay, I see what you mean.
Oh, look at you posing. This is not GQ magazine.
Sure.
We all have to post.
I'm not.
I would like to thank the members of Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority and Delta Sigma Theta for serving as ushers for this evening's program. I'd like to thank you for attending tonight and encourage you to attend our upcoming programs. First, we have our Purdue Alumni Speaker Series, which will feature Dr. Johnny Early, Dean of Pharmacy and Pharmaceutical Studies at Florida A&M University. His topic for his presentation will be Let Your Difference Make a Difference. His presentation will be held on Thursday evening, October the 18th at 8 p.m. in the Stewart Center, room 212. The second in our series of programs will be the Black Cultural Center Coffee House number 29. It will be October the 26th at 8 p.m. in the BCC Multipurpose Room, and it will feature the Haraka Writers and Zoom Live Jazz. I also would like to encourage you to purchase the BCC 20th Anniversary T-shirt. This is a film production. She is on the BCC staff as student coordinator of the New Directional Players, and she is also an executive board member of SLAM, the Society of Liberal Arts for Minorities, and is also a member of the NAACP and Association for Black Students. Janice is a very talented student playwright and actress. She recently wrote, directed, and performed in an original production, which was featured at our Black Coffee House on September 28th. I present to you Ms. Janice Studies.
Thank you. Following Mr. Davis's presentation, there will be a question and answer period, and following that, there will be a reception in the Purdue Memorial Union West Faculty Lounge. For over 3 decades, Ozzie Davis has held a unique place among the great artists of American theater, equally distinguished as an actor, writer, and director. Mr. Davis made his Broadway debut in Jeb and has appeared in such noted plays as Curly Victoria, of which he was the author and the star, A Raisin in the Sun, and he starred in the 1986 Tony Award-winning production of I'm Not Rappaport. Mr. Davis has appeared in several motion pictures, among them his own Curly Victorias and the critically acclaimed Spike Lee movie Do the Right Thing, in which he played the man. In addition, Ozzie Davis has directed several well-known motion pictures, among them Cotton Comes to Harlem and Black Girl. For television, Mr. Davis and his wife, actress Ruby Dee, co-hosted and co-produced 3 seasons of the critically acclaimed PBS series with Ozzie and Ruby, and other television roles were in The Roots, The Next Generation, and King, for which he won an Emmy nomination. Besides Curly Victorias, other published works by Ozzie Davis include Langston, a play based on the life of Langston Hughes, and Escape to Freedom, a play about the life of young Frederick Douglass. Now it is my overwhelming pleasure to introduce to you Mr. Ozzie Davis.
Thank you, my fellow students. And in applaud so vociferously, your marks will be determined by how I'm feeling when I mark you. How are you? How's everybody? Great. Well, first, I'd just like to say happy birthday to Black Cultural Center. 20 years old and counting. I think it's marvelous. I'm happy to have been invited to come and share in the birthday celebration of this institution. I have been wined and dined and made to feel at home in such an extraordinary way that I'm sure I'm going to find it difficult to get up in the morning and catch the plane out. I'll probably be crying all the way to the airport. Mr. Zamora, who is an old and dear friend, has proven to be an instructor who shares with me what he loves about the university, about the center, about the people in it. I went to the center, I looked at everything, I saw everything, I shook hands with the students, I talked, I looked at the books, I talked to some other books. I had a lovely time. I looked at the pictures on the wall and they communicated with me readily. I had no problems whatsoever. I am, as I said before, happy to be here. Sometimes when I travel, I'm traveling as a part of each of us is quite capable of, gorging up a full evening entertainment. So don't feel that you are being mistreated because Rudy is working with Spike Lee and I am here working with you. There'll be another time when the whole situation will be reversed and she'll be here with you and I'll be stuck with Spike Lee. Now, which is not a bad, stuff to tell the truth of it. Black cultural centers, what are they? Where do they come from? What purpose do they serve? On first glance, you might say that black cultural centers have gotten together, to make the black students feel comfortable and the white people uncomfortable. No, that's not really what it's all about at all. There's far more fundamental something at work here that has to do not only with black people and black culture, but America and America as a place where all cultures presumably have a chance to light their own light and show what it is that they are most proud of. But black cultural centers are a relatively new phenomenon on the scene. This one is 20 years old. Very few of them really are older than that. They came into prominence at the end of and as a result of the revolution of the 60s and the 70s, which started over questions of education and which ended with our institutions of learning being mandated to open their doors to the inclusion of all Americans who wanted to come study regardless of their race, color, gender, or creed. And it was found that in order to satisfy some of the needs of the newcomers, new things had to be put on the menu, courses that dealt specifically, in this instance, with black people, who they were, their culture, their song, their dance, and the meaning of it all. The educational institutions opened their doors, if not their hearts, because in addition, to having to fulfill the mandate of good liberal consciences, the government said, if you don't open your doors, we ain't going to give you any more money. And that was very persuasive. The doors were open, and black youngsters did come in and began to find their way into the university. But was there a need for black cultural centers on the campuses then? Is there a need now? Isn't education one thing? Are we dealing with truth? Doesn't 2 + 2 equal 4? Wherever the situation, wherever you're coming from. We're teaching Americans here, we're teaching literature, we're teaching what the truth is all about. Why should there be any particular cultural reference, any particular bent in one particular area? Doesn't that really distort the whole process? Aren't the universities engaged in the universal pursuit of knowledge? And opening their doors means everybody comes in and fills up his cup and goes back out into the world. Well, the truth of the matter is, it doesn't quite work that way, nor should it. Education is about more than the results of 2 + 2. It is about much more than that. And that's one of the motives behind establishing places like the Black Cultural Center. Let me, before I do some sharing with you of some of the glories and goodies of black culture, which is what I really came to do, let me put into some kind of perspective what the Black Cultural Center is all about, how it relates to our history, not only the history of education, but the black people in general in America, etc. I warn you in advance, I'm not a scholar. Fairly good student, but not a scholar. I'm not an authority, I'm not a teacher. I am a storyteller, which means I can tell you what I feel out of my heart that makes a good story. Now, after you hear what I say, and you go back to your instructor and ask him, did you hear what I said? And the instructor says, yeah, it's all a lie, but it did sound good, didn't it? That's perfectly within my purview. I'm not here to convert you or to convince you. I'm merely here to share with you my feelings about the life I have lived, the books I have read, the people I have met, the races I have won, most of which I lost. But just open myself up to you, and if there's something in what I am that you want or need or can make use of, feel free. Now, let's go into our city's version of history, how black folks fit into it. A lot of times, the great glories of that culture in written form, and you have to check his facts and all that stuff. But if you can go along with it, sometimes the moral of the punchline makes the whole adventure of tradition. And then, about 4 years ago, 400 years ago, when we were invited to come over to America, participate in the great democratic tradition and experiment with it, we brought with us certain habits. Now, it is true that we were denuded of our language, of our identity, of our cultural heritage, our tribal identity, and all that sort of thing. But some of the things that we had in Africa, we managed to hang on to. And one of those things was storytelling, and the great storytellers came with us into the slave camps and stayed with us while we were slaves, and they serve us even now. Jesse Jackson is a good example, a great storyteller, and we needed stories, not only black folks, everybody does. But that's the kind of thing that I need. But to tell you my story, my storyteller's version of life in America for black folks, and how that led directly to black cultural senses, such as the one we had. Now, consider the fact that during the time of the Revolution, there was a great ferment in the country. And what kind of country this was going to be was bruited about and talked about and fought over. And the question as to how black folks fit into the country at all was a major consideration. Mr. George Washington, in the very beginning, thought it would be better to fight the whole American Revolution without any black folks at all. That would make the distinction between whites and blacks very clear. And he thought that would be the nice and bright thing to do. It was found early on that in a war you need all the hands you can get, whatever color they are. So George opened his heart and his military ranks and invited the blacks to come on in. The question as to their status, was brooded about, and the British were not kind. They said to any black who escaped and fought for the British would be given his freedom. Well, that was underhanded, as you can see right away. And the slave masters had to come up with their own ploy. Well, don't go to the British. Stay and fight with us, and we'll see what we can do. We can't just make you free, but we'll think about it very strenuously. After the war was over, blacks, to some 5,000, had participated in fighting what they thought was their own liberation. The question of who the hell these black folks were and what we're going to do about them came to a head in 1787 in Philadelphia, when the founding fathers found themselves arguing over black folks in Philadelphia. The Constitution had to be, organized. The document which was going to run the country was being put together. And it almost came to nothing because the question of slavery and black folks and what they meant, separated the brothers pretty deeply. They came up with a compromise. But the compromise was an evasion. And America learned early on the habit of evasion. Probably they learned it from the Constitution. And to this very day, we practice evasion. The last war that we ever had was one I fought in, called World War II. The Korean police action, the Vietnam police action, the Panama rescue, or whatever we did, Grenada. These were not wars at all. This was police action. Our great talent for evasion has served us well and may well account for where we are today with our tremendous military might and power. Now, we in the black community were deeply concerned about what was going to happen. We had fought, and we thought perhaps the time would come for us to be American citizens too. However, white folks felt we didn't like slavery. We really objected very strongly to it. And, even the cost of being an American was a bit high if you had to come here and change. And we figured that, we didn't like that so much. And we watched with great trepidation what was happening in Philadelphia as Ben Franklin and Tom Jefferson and Adams and the Randolph brothers and all the Rutledges argued and fought and wheeled and yielded and evaded and avoided. Now, it so happens in 1787, another incident related to that same struggle was going on another side of the town. And it had to do particularly with the status of black people in the religious establishment in America. There was a great preacher whose name was Richard Allen. He was a black man. He was born a slave and eventually joined the church, got to be a preacher, and he preached so hard he converted his master, you know, and bought himself free and became a minister. He was a Methodist. He attended the first founding convention of the Methodists had in America in Baltimore. And he was deeply pleased when at that convention the Methodists said slavery is a sin. Anybody who owns slaves cannot even be a member of the connection. Oh, Richard Allen, when he heard that, oh man, yeah, this was for me. And he became all the more Methodist because he felt that that was the way to go. And he was, as I said, a sort of a preacher going around with the other preachers and helping them out. They led him into Philadelphia because there was a big church, the St. George's Methodist Church, what really hadn't been filled. And Philadelphia at that time was the stopping off place for all the people who escaped from the South. All the slaves heading north wound up in Philadelphia. And they were cold, and they were poor, and they were hungry. It was just like immigrants that had nothing, and they were dirty, and they were filthy, and they were unemployed, and they were sick, and they were hungry, and they were miserable, and they needed some kind of solace. Well, Richard Allen thought that the Methodist Church was just a place for these black folks. In the first place, when Richard came to the Methodist Church, they didn't even have many buildings. People used to have meetings out in the fields, you know, under the trees, and there would be Indians there, and black folks there, and Irish people there, and they would be praising the Lord like all hell, you know, and Richard liked that very much. Now, in Philadelphia, when they started to build the church, there were some black folks there, and they brought in Richard to preach to the black folks. And they would let him preach at 5 o'clock in the morning. But there weren't many black folks in that church. They were not treated well, and they weren't really happy with the treatment, so they began to stay away in droves. Now, when Richard came, he said, no, that's not right. This is the church, brothers. We need you in here. So he went among the slaves and said, look, I tell you what we do. Why don't we help St. George's complete the building? I don't want your money because I know you ain't got none. But I got some hammers, I got some nails. And you brothers know how to saw and how to put things together. And the black folks got together and helped St. George build that magnificent edifice. And they were sort of welcomed in. But once they got in, on the other side sat the whites who worked hard. And you know how white folks are very well organized. And slave holders and all sitting there wanting to hear the gospel and the singing at its best European style. So when a hymn was raised, there would be two kinds of response to the hymn going on in the same church. On one side, all was polite, all was quiet, all was dignified, all approached God as he should be approached. To hell, dear God. On the other side, hey, God, for God's sake, God, do something. Please, oh, Lord. So finally, 1787, finally, the church father said, this is too much. Upstairs in the balcony. Well, Richard Allen was a little disturbed by that. In the first place, the church laws had begun to change since they had met in Baltimore, and George Washington, who had promised Lafayette that he was going to release all his slaves, had gone back on the promise. And George was a big church man, and there were slaveholders sitting in the congregation who were about to give up their slaves. So Richard himself was not quite comfortable with the situation. What had happened to the Methodist commitment to democratic procedure and the abolition of slavery? The Bible was sort of going by the way. But he was a good church man. He believed in the authority of the church. He believed that God was there and that God would make things right. So he did lead his congregation up into the balcony. He and the fellow named Absalom Jones. But even up in the balcony, the slaves were closer to heaven, so they got louder. And man, oh God, you know how black folks sing. You listen to these gospel singers, nothing but these cats ain't nothing today to what the brothers were putting down then. The slavery was still on them, and the claws, the scars were on their behind. They really had, they sang, they shouted. Back and it started rocking like, things. So the people got really disturbed about that. One Sunday morning, when the prayer was called, and black folks don't, some of them pray quietly, but in the black community, prayer is an active, rest get your message in there quick, because all the other deacons are trying to get theirs in there too. So, while the prayer was going on downstairs, upstairs, man, they were moaning and go, oh, Father, once more, we come before your throne, and we petition you. And Richard Allen was on his knees praying, leading his congregation, and the white usher came upstairs. I said, oh, no. So he went to Richard and said, hey, come on, get up. I said, what? Up off your knees. No, you got to cut this out. Allen said, I'm praying. He said, I don't care what you're doing, man, brother. Up. I said, hold it. You ain't going to get me up off my knees when I'm talking to God. I'm going to finish this prayer. But after I finish this prayer, then maybe you won't have any more problems. So finally, Richard finished the prayer. Everybody said amen. Richard got up, collected his congregation, came downstairs, marched out of the Methodist Church in 1787, and ain't been back yet. Now, what happened? Richard went and, with the help of others, founded a black church that was still Methodist, but it was by itself. Now, the Methodist Church Connections said, now we own this church, although you built it with your own money. Prince Benjamin Rush, Benjamin Franklin, the courts ruled that the black folks could indeed control their church. That legal opinion enabled the black folks to establish a separate black denomination, African Methodist Episcopal, which is going today. Now, the significance of this is very simply, Richard Allen, and he's only one, this happened all over the country, had to make a decision. He had to make a decision which really said, if we're going to survive in America, we have got to segregate ourselves. We've got to pull ourselves together. We've got to build our institutions. We've got to teach our children. We've got to maintain our own ways. Because the world out there is more and more calling us niggers. If we accept their definition, we're dead. We have to have institutions where we can define who we are, where we can pool our little pennies, where we can build our schools and build our colleges and universities and control our culture, which is our definition. So it was Richard Allen who was the father, to some degree, of black nationalism, who was the father of black people as an independent entity in American society. We deliberately segregated, withdrew ourselves from the larger body. And because we did that, we survived. Now that was a dangerous thing to do, because free blacks were always hated by the plantation owners who ran the government, because they had a problem. How could they tell their black slaves that they're inferior and should work happily like mules when they could look up in Philadelphia and see free people with money and carriages and all free blacks? So there was an impulse to get rid of the free blacks in the country. As a matter of fact, there was a society for the colonization of Africa, which was not meant to colonize all the black folks down in the slave camps. No. Just the free blacks, those who owned property, those who were self-sufficient, those who cared about the black folks in the South and wanted to do something about it, such as Richard Allen. And Richard Allen and his brothers were against those colonization societies, because he understood what the political motive was, to remove an effective component of black power and black concern in black institutions, to gut it and to send it offshore, leaving behind the masses of helpless poor folks in the slave camps. Luckily, because of Richard Allen and others, we always fought that. And though some of us did go back to Africa, some of us even formed Liberia, West Africa, where a lot of things are happening now, on that theory. Most of us stayed in this country, but we stayed roughly to ourselves. We had our own segregated society. And because we had schools and churches, and the schools were based on the churches, and we controlled the churches, we created our version of the Christian religion, which sustained those values which were important to us. And because we did, we maintained ourselves as a people. And out of that church came our black thought, black science, certainly black music, black dance, black art, a black sense of identity. The churches and the schools represent it too.
Good evening and welcome to the Black Cultural Center's Cultural Arts series of events. We'd like to thank you for coming out tonight, particularly since we're observing our 20th anniversary and our theme is celebrating 20 years of providing cultural enrichment here at Purdue University. I would like to remind you that a question and answer period will follow the remarks by Dr. Early, as well as we want you to join us for a reception in the Memorial Union West Faculty Lounge immediately following the presentation. I have a few announcements that I'd like to give to you. This coming Friday, as a part of homecoming, the Purdue Convocations is presenting Serafina. It's a theatrical musical about South Africa's townships, power, and courage. It's at 8 o'clock in the Elliott Hall of Music, and tickets are still available. Plenty of tickets are still available. Also on Friday, October the 26th, Black Coffee House number 29 will be held at the Black Cultural Center at 315 University Street at 8 o'clock. And we'll be featuring the Haraka Writers and Zoom. That'll be creative writing, poetry, and jazz. The theme for that program is Dreams Past, Present, and Future. Is it reality, or what's the last? Is it reality or fantasy? That's what threw me. That's at 8 o'clock. I have trouble dealing with the fantasy world. I want to be in reality. That's at 8 o'clock and admission is free. Then, by popular demand on Thursday, November the 8th, the very dynamic Dr. Gwendolyn Grant will be here, and her topic will be the maintenance of a healthy self-image. And this lady was back again, and we had a capacity audience for her last year, and she has returned. That will be on Thursday, November the 8th at 8 o'clock. And that is a workshop, so be prepared for that. And it's admission free too. Our final event for the year will be our Cultural Arts, the 16th Annual Cultural Arts Festival, which will feature the Purdue Performing Arts Ensembles. That will be at 8 o'clock in the Lowell Playhouse Theater. General admission tickets are $3, and for Purdue students, the admission is $2. We'd like for you to come out to that event, which will culminate our series for the fall. The person introducing our speaker tonight is a former colleague and respected friend of Dr. Johnny Early, and they have retained a close friendship over the years, and certainly it's a privilege for me to have him to come and to introduce our speaker so graciously when he has such a busy schedule. Introducing our speaker is the Associate Dean for the School of Pharmacy, Dr. George Sprato.
Thank you, Tony. When Tony called to ask if I would introduce Dean Early, Johnny, to me, I was really pleased and honored, and believe me, it's a real privilege to do so. Dean Early, who was originally from Macon, Georgia, completed his pre-pharmacy education at Fort Valley State College in December 1970, after which he enrolled in Mercer University School of Pharmacy, which is in Atlanta. He graduated cum laude from Mercer in 1973, and then we had the good fortune to have Dean Early join the Department of Pharmacology and Toxicology here at Purdue, where he earned his master's in pharmacology in 1976 and the PhD in 1978. During the last year of graduate study here at Purdue, Dean Early received the Glenn L. Jenkins Award for Excellence in Research, which is awarded to graduate students in the School of Pharmacy. Dean Early then left Purdue and has spent his professional career since that time at Florida A&M University in Tallahassee, where he joined the College of Pharmacy and has held a number of positions there, including assistant and associate professor,
Good evening. I'm certainly glad to be here this evening, and really glad to have the introduction done by Dr. George Sprato. And I, in looking at and what I gave him and thinking about that as versus what he said, he really did a better job than we had agreed that he would do. Did you talk to my mother or something? One of the things I have to tell you that I have a little trouble with, see, I'm from Georgia. I don't like having anything around my neck. Seriously, we lost a couple of family members that way. So, I guess I'll get comfortable with this, as long as no one approaches me. I'm really appreciative of Mr. Zamora of this invitation to return to Purdue. It's something that I've long looked forward to, and I guess everyone who's been to school here looks forward to. And I guess when I started preparing my remarks for this evening, I was trying to come up with a title, which was very easy to do. But then, of course, like anyone else, you start thinking about what you experienced when you were a student here and how that played a role in your life and development. I remember Ross A. Stadium and, of course, Marist Student Housing and the garden plots. Again, I'm from Georgia, so you can understand why I would like to have a garden. And I remember the snow. The beautiful, cold, wet, and slippery snow. I remember Joe Barry Carroll and the Soul Patrol and Eugene Parker, now Turney Parker, with Bert Blee and Sutton in Fort Wayne, Indiana. We shared a plane ride when he was trying to do some work for Neon Dion. I remember the Black Voices of Inspiration, and especially their concert with Mattie Moss Clark. And I remember the tornadoes. I remember sermons at Second Baptist Church, the Song Festival and Soul Food Smorgasbord, and of course the Gospel Rock Choir concert. I remember, of course, my academic home in the pharmacy building. I remember Ralda Simmons, now Attorney Simmons, who also practices pharmacy in the Virgin Islands. I remember the Black Cultural Center and the student performing art ensembles. And yes, I remember the blizzards and the unbelievable cold. You will then understand why, when I finished, I was so eager to leave to go to Florida. Now, I'm not in South Florida, in fact, in North Florida, where the temperatures are different from those that are in South Florida, but it's not Lafayette. You would also understand that I would have preferred coming here during what you call summer. To us, it would probably be spring. The topic that I chose for this evening is Let Your Difference Make a Difference. Seems appropriate to me in the post, It's Your Thing, Do What You Want to Do era, and during the celebration of the 20th anniversary of the Black Cultural Center that we focus on differences. I'm going to give you some examples of people who have played a role in my life, and of course it's by far not complete, but I'm sure that and hope that in some of these people you find some examples. And I will also move on to talk about some of the experiences I had that relate to the Black Cultural Center and what that meant to me. The words of a song popular in some of the groups I participated in the 1960s, high school era, songs that we used to use in concerts was No Man is an Island. Yet we know that every person is created in the image of God and that each person has been given a talent or talents which can be used to improve the world for all humankind. Failure to use these talents results in a life of meandering meaninglessness and missed opportunities to make the world better. That's the gospel according to John. And I am a Baptist. Down through the ages, there have been individuals that have stepped forward and allowed their differences to make a difference. One of the people that has done that, that did that for me, was Raymond P. Jordan, a band director when I was in high school. From 4th grade through 11th grade. But he was a tremendous teacher. he had a phrase that we use many times. In fact, we put a little chant to it to say we would look sharp, be sharp, is sharp, as it relates to our preparation to go into performance. Yes, we did that pretty much like a football team would do to get ourselves ready, to get up for the competition. We saw it that way. In fact, as we were talking earlier this evening to some of the people, the students in Falcon, I remembered and relayed to them the fact that we used to emulate both Tennessee State and, of course, Florida A&M's marching bands. Of course, Tennessee State no longer has a band. We then would go through our room, and the conversation on the way back was, who messed up? We want to get this guy or this girl so that that won't happen again. He also made it clear to you that he accepted no excuses. He wanted you to do it right and do it right the first time. He used to say that if you didn't play a stanza correctly the first time it came to you to play, he would say it used to burn me up. Black folks always take 2 times. And it really used to burn me up. And consequently, I didn't want to ever have to do it twice, when it would come my time to play a particular part. He instilled pride in you through that kind of a process in terms of being African American and trying to give your best and no excuses. Raymond Jordan made a difference. Another person that really played a very key role in my life in terms of my early education was a man by the name of Dr. Robert Steele down at Fort Valley State. He's still on faculty there. I was taking a freshman biology course, and this man impressed me to no end. Because in his fashion, he would walk into the classroom, the freshman biology course, with only a piece of chalk behind his right ear, usually with his coat over his shoulder and with a vest on. Now, this is not my first introduction to Fort Valley State. Been there a lot as a high school student. My dad took one of his degrees there, 2 of them in fact. And so I'm not at all in terms of being there, but this man simply impressed me. He would come in and give his lecture without paper or pencil. And what we were doing in this particular instance was learning about the phylums, genus, species, and you understand how difficult that is. But the man had the thing down. I would try to trip him up with questions. Couldn't do it. I would be amazed that after a weekend, he would come in on Monday and pick up at the exact place where he left off. Still, no paper or pencil. I could never figure this out. At any rate, as we progressed through the course, and I did have some difficulty early on with him, and that brought me into his office, of course. Not walking long before it was called anything, let alone a conflict or a war. That made an impression on a lot of us. Consequently, this guy, Johnny, decided to go to college. Of course, they have a lot of family pressure around that as well. Some of the guys, however, did go to the military, and some survived. But by far not all of them. He really made an impression, and of course, the biology led to pharmacy, and pharmacy led to Purdue, Purdue led to Florida A&M, or FAMU as we call it. Robert Steele made a difference. When you look at athletes, and of course, if you're talking about the Black Cultural Center, you have to really talk about the community in its total. And he's been here. I first saw him here, Muhammad Ali. That man certainly made a difference. Who would ever forget the phrase, float like a butterfly or sting like a bee? Or I'm the greatest. Who could ever forget his accomplishments in the ring and the magnificent changes in boxing that he ushered in?